Alright, I'm going to show and walk you through how to edit your sermons, how to put in graphics, and how we go about the import process and the export process. So it'll be a whole bunch of little steps here, so you might want to backtrack, check this out later, but it'll be a good reference point for what your routine should be every single week. So I've got a finished product here right now to show you. And let me mute those while I'm talking. You got your intro right here that is created. That's a file we're importing. We've got the sermon graphic, or the sermon message right here. And then we've got the different video layers here. So we've got a background layer, which I'll move around here. You kind of see that. And then you've got your text layer, which is right here as soon as we start moving it. Got your text layer right here, see that moving. Got your graphic layer, so the graphic layer I've got right here is the gray box that you see. That moves there, that's how we do the sermon reference. And then you've got your other text layer that gives you, that you've got there for the actual reference scripture. Okay? Alright, so the idea that I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you how to get these files in. I'm going to show you how to get these graphics in and everything, and then you should be able to rock and roll. Alright, so I have created a new blank sequence. So if you ever need to do that, you go File, New, Sequence right here. That'll work for you. And then what you're going to want to do is drag your file in. So I've got these already populated. This is the file for the sermon. So again, if you need to do that, file import, and then that'll bring up a dialog box that you can go in and pick whatever file that you want to do. So if you wanted to do this one right here, you click that, you hit open, and it would import it into the project window. Alright, so a couple key things here. So just make any sequence, any size, or whatever that you want, because I'll show you this little trick. When you drag this in here, so you want to click, hold, and drag to your timeline, to V1 Audio 1, it's going to give you this box right here that says it doesn't match the settings. Do you want to match? You want to say yes, because we want to match a sequence that is just like the video that you are importing. So I'm going to hit change, and then it's going to import your video right there. So you can see all there. It looks good. It's playing. I've got it muted.
One of you are welcome here.
Okay. So you'll see that audio is playing and everything, so you're good there. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do, but this is going to give you the basic idea of how to get stuff in here. And alright, so the first thing that we want to talk about is moving the video and how we've got this over here. So I'm going to find your intro here in the project window. Go back to that sequence. So the first thing is you want to move this over, so you just click, hold, and drag. What I like to do is click and hold, highlight those things. It's kind of just a habit that I do. That make sure I hit both of them. That way it doesn't, offset the video and the audio. If you do, you'll get that little information box right there, so you know that something's messed up. So I'll click, hold, and drag both of those. I'm going to take my intro. I'm going to bring that in here. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to override it like that. That'll cut off your intro. You can see it'll just kind of gut right into that before that's there. So what you want to do is make sure you've got things on different layers. The same thing here works like it is on Photoshop, like it is on Illustrator, any other kind of design. Basically you're working with layers. So V1 is going to be your main layer right here. But if you want to have something go over it, you want to bring it up to V2. So you just click, hold, and drag. Same thing for audio. That way we can overlap. Let's mute that. So that way we can overlap and fade out. So the quick shortcut for this is Control or Command D will give you a crossfade on your video. So Control D on Windows will do that. You can see this little cross dissolve here. So what I'm doing right here is I'm expanding and contracting the video to where I want it instead of cutting. So I'm not like cutting and splitting it. I'm actually expanding it to the length or bringing it down. So what you did here with this intro's got a lot of extra space at the end, which is good because then we can crossfade it to the sermon that we want to see. So if you hit that, that's a little too short, bring it up a little bit. You hit that, it'll fade right in there because this is on video too. If you did this on video, if you brought the other video on top, you wouldn't see that. So that's why anything you want to have over this sermon needs to go on a video above it. That same thing would go with B-roll and the graphics that you'll see here in a little bit. Okay. The other thing here would be the audio for this. This audio is pretty high and it's also pretty long, so we don't want to have the audio overpowering the speaker. So what we're going to do is, like I said, Control-Shift-D or Command-Shift-D will give you the crossfade. So the exact same principle, we're just crossfading the audio instead of the video.
Think about that.
Oh, that's really loud. 1 second. On the brackets, so the brackets next to the P on your keyboard will raise and lower the audio. This little line right here is at 0 decibels, so that's the audio, the audio levels that it's at right now. If you want to bring it down decibels, you just bring those brackets down, and I'll bring it lower. That's still pretty loud.
So what do y'all think about that?
All right, so you can hear his audio since it's bleeding in here. So we don't want
What do
that.
y'all think about that?
So we don't want that. So what we want to do is we want to bring that over here a little bit, and then you kind of want to have a nice little crossfade, maybe even a little bit longer, so it doesn't shock the listener or the viewer.
So what do y'all think about that?
Okay, so I think that's pretty good. So you hear that, it kind of fades out. He comes in, and we might crossfade him in a little bit. So I'll show you a little trick here. So you can see that it gives you a default length. So what you want to do is bring that down. So make sure you click on the edge of that. You'll get that little tool change right there. Bring that down. You don't have to push any buttons, and then to make it do that. So you just hover over that, and you can bring it down, click and drag, and then that should fade him in.
So what do y'all think about that? All right.
Cool. All right, so that works, and we are going to click, hold, and drag. So that's what I like to basically select all is what I'm doing, and then that's going to bring everything over there to the front. So this is the beginning of your timeline. It's good, and that's all good there. All right, so the thing that we want to do too on the sermons is find the end point, and let me see what it is on here. It is 35:59. That'll be pretty close. 35:59:00. All right, so that's just your time code. If you ever need to get to a specific spot, you can click that and type in the time code, and that'll get you to where you want it to be. All right.
Held it to the cross. I don't know about you, but that makes me happy.
All right. So for the purpose of the video, well, that's where we'll end it. So if you hit C on your keyboard, C on the keyboard will give you the the razor tool, and that'll cut and split that clip. So you can see it's there. That I move the clip over.
Cancel the charge.
Okay.
Of our legal indebtedness to the cross. I don't know about you, but that makes me happy.
Okay, so you can clearly see that there's a gap. So let's say we don't want to use that. You click, hold, and drag, hit delete, that's gone. Okay, so this is pretty abrupt. So we want to hit Command D, Command Shift D, and we're going to crossfade out the video and the audio.
That makes me happy.
Cool. That looks really soft. That looks good. All right, so the idea for putting in these graphics is we want to have our backgrounds. So I've got background tools here, and I'll show you how to do that. So if I open up this project window, I've got all these brand colors that we want to use. So if we go in and click and hold and bring it to the timeline, just like I did with the video, that'll get you in there. You can see that it's full screen. It's obviously not what you want. So what I did was we want the full screen if we ever have long sermons or we have long points. We want to have enough space. We don't want to have to make a whole new graphic. So I made that full screen, and over here on the effects control panel, you're going to see motion, and there is position. That's what you want to do what you want to use to edit. So this will bring it down and up, and this will bring it left and right. So if you bring this down, we want to make it lower thirds. So something like that will make sense. Again, you're going to get a feel for how the scriptures go, and all that stuff is totally fine to go in and edit, change the size or anything like that, because sermons and points and scriptures all vary from week to week. So we know that we're going to give you an option to be able to adjust for that. Alright, so that's on video 2. Clearly, obviously, that's on top of this video. That's how we always want to make sure we do that. And then the second thing would be to use your text tool. So right here is your type tool, and you want to create a text box like you would on any other program. That has created that. So if we just say, hey, looks good. So there's that. You can see the text is there. Over here on the effects control panel, you can see the source text. This is where you want to edit it. What we like to use is Proxima Nova. Some people may want to use a different text, but for now, for the purposes of the video, that's what we'll do. Okay, so let's do a Proxima Nova regular. You can see it changed that font. And right here, we'll change your size of your font. You can see that. So you're going to have to mix and match again between the way these points go and everything like that. So if you need to make it bigger, you need to make it smaller, make sure you've got that figured out. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is get that little gray box there for you to be able to put in the scripture reference. So what you want to do is go to the graphics panel, or graphics menu, go to new layer, and then hit rectangle, and that's going to populate a rectangle for you. You can change the fill, stroke, anything like that, but for what we're doing, we're not going to need that. So you want to switch to the move tool. That's going to move the graphic, and you can see here on the timeline it's populated a new layer for you. So you want to kind of move that, bring that into position. These little anchors here will be able to expand, contract, make it the size you want. I think this size looks good for what we need, and then that'll give you the box. So then the next thing you want to do is do your type tool again and create a new text box. Yep, sorry, it's just a little delayed there. Okay, so you want to create that new text box. Let's say hey, just so you can see that it's in there. Let's go grab that reference. We're going to paste that in there. Alright, so if you need to move this, just go ahead and you can move that text panel wherever you need. And then you can clearly see that the triangle, or the rectangle is not filling that enough, so you want to click on the rectangle, hit those anchors, and then you can expand that box for you so that it actually fills the reference point. You shouldn't have to do that a ton, but every once in a while you might have like a long scripture or a long reference that requires you to do that. Alright, so now you can see, he's not going to talk about Colossians here.
There's something permanent about that.
But you can see that that just kind of popped up. We don't like that. That doesn't look very good. So what you want to do is click, hold, and drag. Highlight all those and hit Command D. It puts a cross dissolve on both sides, which is awesome. So then this will look a lot better for you.
There's something permanent about that. There's something permanent about that. Something that says, you matter to me.
So you can see that that scripture clearly is not what he's talking about, but the principle applies. Whatever we want to do with that text, we cross dissolve in and cross dissolve out, and it looks really nice. So let's say you'll see here where we've had a scripture go where it needs to go into a second blue panel, and it crossfades into the next one. So the way you want to do that is you want to expand these out. So let's just say that's really long. You want to hit the razor tool or C on your control or on your keyboard, and then you just kind of click anywhere on that. So you can see that we've got two text boxes right here. This second one, if we go in and change it, so just to grab that reference, Command C, copy that, click in there, and paste it, you can see that we've got two text boxes on two layers now, or on the same layer, but two items on that layer, and it changes. And then if you click both of those, Command D to crossfade, it'll crossfade into your next one. So sometimes if the pastor wants to go longer, has a much longer scripture, 5, 6, 7 verses, just crossfade, extend out, and you should be able to go with him on the times that he's talking about the verses. Okay, so that principle would apply to every single, let's say there's another verse here. If you just click, hold, and drag, if you hold Alt on your keyboard and drag, that duplicates everything that you've already made. Same settings and everything. So if you look at this, it's the exact same thing. So then, that way you don't need to go import, resize, and do everything every single time. Once you set it up once, then that'll be good for you and you should be good to go. So then, if you want to change any of this text again, so let's just say this is like Matthew 1, and then let's just cut some of the text. Let's just cut some of that text out just for just so you can see. So now you can see this is Matthew 1. This has a different text item, and here it still says Colossians and has the full text reference. So if you go in here and duplicate these, you can edit these individually, and they will not affect the previous ones that you created. So then that way you can do anything with, like, if you have 15 points, you just click, hold Alt and drag these, just add a new point, and you can do that as many times as you want. It won't matter. Okay, so then the next thing would be with the points. This will be pretty quick. This is the same exact principle that I talked about with the blue box, but I'll show you how to replicate some of those settings. So let's just bring the orange box in here. That's what we'll use for points. Close out that panel, and you'll see it's clearly in the same thing. So you're like, oh, I don't remember, what position that the blue box was in. So all you have to do is go to the blue box. If you select motion right there, so make sure that's highlighted, copy that. So with Command or Control C, go to the orange box, click that, Command V to paste, and it's going to put that in the exact location. So you can see that. All right, and then the other thing that we were doing with the points, these will be different since they're bigger. So I'll copy that point so I've got the text. But what you want to do is, again, you're just going to want to create a text box that fits within that. I'm going to paste that in there. And then what we want to do is we want to center those for the styling. So we want to hit a center text there. And you can see like that it's centered, but it's too high. So then you want to then move it with the position tool. So you bring that down. Boom, there you go. And then this is bigger. So again, if the points are too big or too small, you can just bring that down. There you go. If you just want to. Whatever would work. If you think that this is a thing that you would want to test. So like if this looks good on screen, but is too small in service, then you might adjust those. But that's again a kind of a thing that you want to test every single time when you start putting these up. Okay, so just to recap before I get to the very last thing, this is adding the scriptures, and this is adding the points right here. So the same principles apply, you just are going to have some different settings, like size settings and colors for those. All right. Then the very last thing I've got here is just a quick animation. So I'm going to go to the sequence. Go to the very end of this video. You can see where that's at. Okay, so we're going to open the backgrounds. We're going to drag white in here. Going to crossfade like we have been. You can see that. Great. So then we got the Alive logo. I'm going to drag that in here as well. That is clearly too big. Let me go ahead and add that crossfade to it as well. So what we want to do is we want to scale it. So what you see here is this is at 45%, and you see these little diamonds here. You can only see half of them. Let me bring that over. That's what's called a keyframe. And so you want to have this keyframe from the start to the end of the transition. And the keyframes help you scale up and down. So if we go over here, we want to first go to the motions panel, scale that down. You can drag that, or you can click in like I did on the time code, hit 45 and be good to go right there. That's kind of like what I like to do. If you hit this little stopwatch right here, that adds a keyframe. So what that does is that keeps you at 45 right now. And then if you want to go to 48, so just like a little bit of motion, you type that in there, it creates a brand new keyframe. So then what that does is that goes from 45 to 48 within that time frame. If you want that to go slower, you're going to click, hold, and drag that and bring that all the way to the end. So then that way you've got the crossfade and it is scaling in. So if we play that, you can see that little motion. If you want it to be a bigger motion, you can just click that, delete that keyframe, and let's say we want to go to 55. This is probably going to be a little too fast, but it'll make sense when you see it. So same time frame, but it's going a bigger distance. So since it's scaling up higher, you're going to want, it's going to go faster. It's actually not too bad, but you can see that that goes faster. If you went crazy, it would go way too fast and everything. But something like that, like those numbers, like within 10 or less, will get you a good motion that looks good for you guys. One final thing here before we go to export is you can see that there's a name here for the sequence that I created in this new sequence we just made. Just says sequence 1. If you go over to the projects, you can see the file right here for the sequence. If you just click into that where it says sequence 1, that brings you the option to rename and edit. So if you wanted to make it a live church sermon series title, and then you just say series title and week, whatever it is. So week, let's just say week 1B, since that's something we did, since we're just editing for this. So what you'll do now that you've got your sermon sequence title, then we're going to export. So you want to go to File, Export, Media, or Command or Control M. That's going to bring up this box. So everyone's going to have a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to show you the best default settings that I like to do. So what I will do is go to the presets, and since we're typically going to YouTube or Vimeo, I select one of these. I typically default to the YouTube 1080p HD. Your output name is here, which is what we already created. So since we populated it here in the sequence, it gives you the proper output name. And then I will typically mess with the bitrate settings. So if you can see right now the file size is about 4.2 gigs, which is pretty high. If you switch that to 5, that's going to decrease it significantly. And what that does is target bitrate changes quality of video, but 5 still pretty much gives you a great looking video without sacrificing all that space. So it may not be a 20 like the craziest 4K crisp video, but the 5 bit rate is going to look perfectly fine to anybody that watches it. And that is what I typically do with any video sermon, since they're such big files, and especially if you do Vimeo, which has a file cap on some accounts, or like a space cap, then that allows you to get more content up. So when you are done, whenever you've got that, you got the YouTube settings, and then when you do switch this, it makes it custom instead of default YouTube. Once you do that, then you'll hit export, and it'll go through the whole process. And these typically take about 20-30 minutes to export since they're large files. Okay, so then I'm going to cancel out of that for now so that we've got that. And then one thing, just some quick tips at the end that you might run into is you see this red bar right here. You will, if you're playing the video, right now this is working, but sometimes a red bar is basically an indication that your video might just be too big for your computer to play properly, so it might drop frames. it might slow down or it might freeze while playing the video. So right now it's going to work okay, but sometimes, like if it freezes or anything, or it's choppy, that doesn't mean the video is bad. That just means that your computer's running it a little slower than the program wants to. A couple of things that you can do to fix that if it's really bad is to create in and out points. So if you hit I on the keyboard, it brings up a highlight. You hit O, it brings up the end point of the highlight. So if you were to import, or if you were to export a video or edit anything, it would only do something that's with the in and out points. So what I typically do is find the out point of my video and hit out so it doesn't do any extra video. If I've got other things like past this that I was just using for reference, it won't export out and make like this crazy long video that you did on accident. So I always like to have those in points and out points. And then to help pre-render this, if you go to sequence and then render in to out, this is going to bring out a progress bar, and it's going to basically preload and render out your video so that it runs better for your computer. Typically with sermons, I don't do that because it's such a long video. It takes a while to do this process, and if you do change anything, like you color correct it or you add something, then it's going to have to re-render again. If you have just like a small clip that you need to do, it's worth it, but this is mainly if you just aren't being able to run that video properly. So I'll cancel that for now. So overall in the process, you should be able to know how to import the files. You should be able to know how to get these messages in here, and then you should be able to know how to get these points in and the scriptures, and then you should be able to get that outro logo, and then you should be able to export. So for now, that should be good to go, but if you have any questions, let me know.